something that's very important for any viable explanation is that it must be testable. And that's a way of saying that there must be some way to prove it false. Okay? Provable as false. But I don't want to have you mistake that for saying that any explanation is false. It's just that there must be some thing that could show that it's false if it were to be false. Okay. In other words, it needs to be falsifiable. All right. And so explanations, they need to be put out there. They're often bold, but they need to be the kinds of claims that can, in theory, be proven false if they were false. So let's look at a couple examples here. Let's say that there's a person named Tim who is sad. Okay, Tim is sad. That is the phenomenon that needs some explanation. We want to know why Tim is sad. So one possible theory is that Tim didn't sleep much last night. Okay, and then implied in that is that a lack of sleep negatively affects mood. Okay. This explanation passes our test. It is something that can, in theory, be proven false. We can test it. One thing we can do for this part of the explanation is to ask Tim how much he slept last night. And we can and he can say that he got a full 8 hours or 9 hours. He can say that he only slept 4 hours. But it's the kind of thing that we can go to him for an explanation. And if there's any question that he might be lying, we could ask someone else who can attest to how much Tim slept. Okay. And then here, this would involve a wider study. A lack of sleep negatively affects mood. We, of course, can conduct studies to figure out if there is a correlation first between sleep and mood, and whether there is a causal relationship. That's something we looked at previously. Causal relationships are themselves part of inductive arguments. But whether or not there's not only a correlation between lack of sleep and mood, but a causal relationship as well. But we can do big general surveys and see if there is that kind of connection. And if there is a connection between lack of sleep and negative moods, and Tim attests to not sleeping much, then this seems like a pretty good explanation for why he's sad. There, of course, can be many other explanations, and we would want to learn more about Tim. Maybe there's a specific reason he's sad, like a loved one is sick or something like that. Okay, but consider this alternative explanation. Tim is sad, okay? And this one says that Tim's psychic energy is at abnormal levels. Okay. There's a big difference between this explanation and the first one that we looked at. And the big thing that is different between them is that psychic energy is by definition something that is not empirical. And it's sort of a vague concept. And it's not the kind of thing that we can actually measure with specific tools. And so what this explanation lacks, that the first one did not lack, is the ability to be tested. There's really nothing that we can provide that could prove this explanation false, right? Because we can't provide the actual measurement of psychic levels that would show it to be at normal levels, because it's not the kind of thing that can be measured in the first place. So that makes it a less attractive, not an impossible explanation. Okay, we're using inductive reasoning, so this is a possibility, but its inability to be tested makes it a very weak explanation, and one that wouldn't be convincing in an argument. Okay, and so these kind of explanations that aren't testable, that where there can't be hard evidence brought to bear to show that they are true, or to demonstrate that they're false, when we don't have that ability, the explanation should be thought of by the critical thinker as a particularly weak explanation. Even if it's one that's possibly true, it's still one that is much weaker in doing the work it's supposed to be doing than an alternative explanation that can be tested. So this first explanation would certainly be the more plausible one, even if it turns out to be false. Just the fact that it can be shown to be false is a strength of that explanation.